Well, Youth Day in South Africa is being marked against the backdrop of several mounting challenges plaguing the country's young people. From record high unemployment levels to worryingly low educational outcomes, the crisis facing young people in this country is once again being described as a ticking time bomb. So on this day in 1976, thousands of pupils took to the streets of Soweto in protest against the apartheid government. Today we're reflecting on that story and where we are in 2022. My co-anchor Ayanda Nyathi is live to us in Soweto, where it all began. Our reporter Malungelo Booi is in Mthatha for us this morning. That's where President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to address a National Youth Day event. Ayanda, shall we begin with you, where it all began in 1976 on this day?
Yeah, absolutely, Michelle. Good morning to you. We're live to you from the streets of Soweto, quite literally. And before we get to speaking about what today actually signifies, at least insofar as the history books are concerned, yesterday, around this time, you and I spoke of a cold front. Now, I am here to confirm that the cold front has definitely arrived. -1 degrees here, but that hasn't certainly dampened the spirits of those who are hoping to drive home the message around what the youth on this day in 1976 were trying to drive home and why it still matters in 2022, even against the backdrop of some of the issues that you've raised: high unemployment rate, widespread disillusionment across the country's youth. We are strategically placed at Morris Isaacson School. It's an important institution when you consider the number of people, not only in our distant history, but also in our recent history, who've walked through the doors or the gates of this institution, from Tsietsi Mashinini to Dr. Ivan Khoza, I believe, who are all part of this institution's history. It's thought of as being, if you like, the heartbeat of the planning that took place at the time of the 1976 uprising. And, you know, in many ways, many people, as we reflect on this day, will come to this institution to reminisce, take stock, perhaps speak about where things have gone wrong and perhaps where the opportunity lies for things to potentially still go right. And for that, let me bring in my guest at 6 o'clock on this cold Thursday morning. Nomsa Mazwai is part of the Funk It, I'm Walking It organization. You'll tell us a bit more about that. Good morning, by the way. Thanks very much for being on Newzroom Afrika.
Good morning, and I'm so glad we are all up and awake and engaging and ready for this very important day. I stand here representing Funk It, I'm Walking, We Uprising Youth, and the June 16 Youth Development Foundation. And yes, Morris Isaacson, what a historic school.
Let me first get your reflections on this day. You know, we, I guess, in some instances find it easy to speak about just how far sometimes we've come from even the ideals that were held by the 20,000 odd young people who are marching through these streets, pushing back against the substandard education that we're getting. A few years later, your reflections about perhaps the state of affairs even for young people in this country.
Last night we had a beautiful discussion, sober discussions at the Box Shop Lifestyle on Vilakazi Street. Young people came together, and it's surprising because just in its happening, it was a stark reflection of where we are today. We were up the road on Vilakazi Street having an engagement, and down the road the politicians were meeting, completely detached from young people, completely out of touch with what the reality is on the ground. The reality is we need to create our own opportunities. The reality is we are who we have been waiting for. The reality is nobody's coming to save us. And so as young people last night, we had our sober discussions, we were talking about collaboration. How do we leverage skills from each other? How do we lessen our dependency on the expectation that government is coming to save us? Because we all know the lights are flicking.
Literally.
The garbage hasn't been collected. Services are not being delivered. The government is not coming.
Sure, and perhaps it's a good opportunity to try and place the organization that you're with in that context. What do you guys do? What is the hopes in terms of outcomes?
Well, myself, Funk It, I'm Walking, together with my partners, We Are Uprising Youth, as well as June 16 Youth Development Foundation. We have seen that there is an economic value to safety. And so we are working in Soweto with communities in all the wards, and we're talking about how do we unlock the economic value of safety. You know, we've got to be innovative as South Africans. We've got to be innovative as young people to say, what are the resources that we have? And community and access to creating safer spaces is something that we have. In safer communities, property prices are better. In safer communities, restaurants can operate later. There's economic opportunities that are created just by safety. So that's why we're wearing our t-shirts. This is our campaign. We're pushing for a safe Soweto because we know safety in Soweto will create jobs for young people. We're creating our own solutions, solutions that don't need funding, that don't need intervention, solutions that we can create for ourselves. And I think last night, if you're at sober discussions at the Bookshop Lifestyle, you've heard young people that are coming up with entrepreneurial ideas that are for the future. And they awoke to the idea that we are who we have been waiting for.
That's such an interesting concept, the economic value of safety. This is the first commemoration we're marking post the July unrest we saw last year. And I guess, that fits really well with the message you're trying to drive home. One can't help but notice how many young people were part of that unrest, as it's now called. I mean, what does that raise for an organization like yours?
I think the July uprising, the July uprising, right, showed us that, first of all, there is such a big gap between the haves and the have-nots. We saw the have-nots. We saw them on TV. We saw the reality. We like to talk about people that don't have anything, as if there's some academic idea, the poor, the poverty. And we saw them really live. But what we also saw was the influence of social media, the influence of the media. People were stealing TVs. People were stealing jeans. People were stealing things because they see them on Instagram. And I go back, our politicians are out of touch. They're wearing these labels, these ridiculous clothes. They're going to these ridiculous places. They're spending ridiculous amounts of money. The reality on the ground is that majority of South Africans are struggling to get something in their stomachs every day.
Absolutely.
And our politicians need to get in tune with that. And what we need is service delivery so that people can access opportunities. And
you and I will keep speaking about that throughout the course of today's commemoration. Thank you so much for starting the day with us so early on a chilly Thursday morning. Nomsa Mazwai is at Funk It, I'm Walking, an organization that's really shining a spotlight on a concept that I think is quite intriguing, the economic opportunities of safety in a community like Soweto, which, like many other communities across this country, certainly has a long way to go, many might argue, in creating the kind of safe environment that allow everyone, including the youth, to reach their full potential.
Wow, what an incredible way to kick off our Youth Day coverage. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, we've got vibrant young people in our country who are trying to make a difference. One just wonders what government is doing to try and harness that kind of vibrancy that we just saw in that interview. Ayanda, thanks so much for that. Let's stay on our Youth Day coverage. Take you live now to Mthatha. That's where we find our colleague Malungelo Booi, who is covering the President's first official address. His Youth Day speech has been delivered for the past couple of years at least, virtually due to COVID-19 regulations, Malu. It's different this year.
That's right, Michelle. In fact, he'll be addressing South Africans from Mthatha here in the Eastern Cape. He'll addressing young people, Michelle, who will be coming from various communities in Mthatha and also various towns around this city. Mthatha used to be the former capital of the former homeland of the former Transkei, and this is where, in fact, Michelle, this is the seat of the King Sabata Dalingebo municipality, as well as the Tambo District Municipality. The Tambo District Municipality, Michelle, is one of the most impoverished areas in South Africa. And of course, as you would know, that the Eastern Cape is one of the provinces where unemployment really stands at around 52%. And the majority of those people are mainly young people. So they'll be listening to President Cyril Ramaphosa delivering that message. And of course, Michelle, the challenges that are facing people here in the Eastern Cape are the challenges really that are facing many other young people in the country. And it's going to be interesting then to hear what the president of this country will be telling young people who are really tired of not seeing things happening, who are tired of government who's not delivering on the promises that were essentially made to them. As Michelle, you and I know that young people today also face the challenge of drugs. They are also depressed because they literally don't have anything to do, and they feel like the government of the day is not delivering on its mandate.
And of course, Malu, the President will be delivering that Youth Day address as well under a cloud. Arthur Fraser meeting just yesterday with the Hawks as investigations around that 2020 Pala Pala farm robbery continues. Let me thank both of our colleagues here, Malungelo Booi, our reporter in the Eastern Cape in Mthatha, and Ayanda Nyathi, live to us there in Soweto. Freezing cold overnight in Johannesburg, one of the coldest nights of the year. But they're out and about doing what needs to be done this Youth Day.